welcome back to another episode of the Parasite Doc podcast. Today we have Caspar Szulc, who will be joining us. Caspar is currently the president and co-founder of Innovative Medicine, a company dedicated to transforming healthcare through an advanced and truly comprehensive form of personalized integrative medicine. His work in medicine has garnered the attention from top medical minds across 6 continents, including Nobel laureates, top CEOs, Hollywood royalty, and best-selling authors. In addition, he oversees the New York Center for Innovative Medicine, NYCIM, a renowned medical center that attracts patients from all over the world. He is passionate about changing medicine and helping more people heal in a smarter way. Enough said. Welcome, Caspar. All right, Caspar, I am super excited to have you on the podcast. I know you have a wealth of knowledge. I share a lot of your posts on my personal page. I know my followers love your content as well. So number one, thank you for, investing time and being here today, because I know you're going to help a lot of people. I want to start off with your journey. So how did you specifically get into healthcare and how did you, land up where you are?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And ended up here because I was born into it, I say.
Okay.
My father was a doctor. My mother's a psychologist, a PhD as well. So a doctor too. They're both doctors.
Okay.
I grew up just in a different childhood, basically. My parents were immigrants from Poland. So I had a European immigrant mentality, work hard, tough it out and everything. But also, they were doctors that at the time when I was growing up in the 80s, they were switching from a conventional base where my father was an anesthesiologist, my mother just knew, normal psychotherapy, to more of a holistic base. And they started to travel the world because they were both like, hey, we're getting good results, but not really. Our patients are sort of doing better, but requiring more drugs. They're coming in like a revolving door. We get them a little better, they get worse, they come back, and we keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
This can't be, the right way, what we got into this field for.
Mm-hmm.
So they started to travel the world and see what else is out there, solution-based, that can help us provide something better for our patients and truly heal them, not just manage their disease.
Yeah.
And I got to go along for the ride, and it was a beautiful one. I was not very grateful at the time when I wanted to just chill with my buddies and ride BMX bikes and not be in like Africa or China learning acupuncture, everything. But no, I look back now and be like, damn, was I blessed and a little brat.
Oh,
So
100%. Because that wisdom that you accumulated over the years, I mean, like you just said, now, that's incredible. Really.
yeah. And it led into a time where I was in college and was considering medical school, but I was also like, you know what? My dad was so busy at the hospital all the time. He didn't really he wasn't there all the time for my t-ball games and basketball games. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And maybe I'll go a different path. And I ended up going into business school, marketing, finance, ended up as Wall Street, working at State Street Global Advisors, and was miserable. Like a year into it, I was like, this is not for me. This is not my path.
Yep.
And really fortunately, kind of was like, well, what do I know? You start to be like, what am I good at really? If I thought this was it and it's just not at all resonating with me. And I said, the thing I know is medicine. I've been around it a lot. And even though I can't be a clinician with where I am right now, I know enough about where the shortcomings are, the challenges, the pitfalls, especially when you look at integrated medicine where there isn't like big hospitals and backing and administrators. So I said, let me do that. Let me start to get into how can I help this field, this industry grow? Because it was small. Holistic health was, mainly acupuncturists and chiropractors.
100%.
Doctors that got into the field were kind of ostracized at the time in late 90s, early 2000s. Fortunately, it's grown a tremendous amount to where now functional medicine, you have all these doctors, or big organizations. And I was happy to be kind of a part of it, even in helping my father figure out all the business side of it, into marketing, into building awareness, empowerment tools for patients, and really seeing that there's so much you could do in medicine to make it better. And I feel like I just hit the tip of the iceberg with everything.
100%. And I know we were going to talk about biohacking today because that's a huge passion of mine. Long story short, I actually started in Western medicine. I kind of had an epiphany, with the apparent blocks in the model and where I could go with what I wanted to do with patients. So that's kind of how I ended up in naturopathic medicine. And I found on my own personal journey kind of the bio aspect or biohacking aspects that, are like the hyperbaric oxygen, the ozone therapy, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to give you the floor on that and how you headed into biohacking.
Yeah, biohacking was an interesting one because it wasn't around forever, right?
Mhm.
Like Dave Asprey, the father of biohacking, like he wasn't around in the early two. He was around, but he didn't really create this until later in the
Right.
2000s, and even then, it didn't really pick up that much. But the interesting thing was that we were utilizing technology in the early 2000s that now all the biohackers use, but we were using it on disease. So
Okay.
we were using it in a different way where people would come to us with disease, and we were doing things like biocharger, oxygen therapy, different ozone therapies, everything.
Okay.
When that started to get big in the biohacking world, it caught my attention. Like, hey, I've been doing this forever. Like NAD, yeah, like everyone loves it in biohacking. Like we've been using IVs for people with Parkinson's, with tremors, with neurological disorders for a long time. It's seen great results. And
Okay.
it dawned on me that biohacking is the starting point of where medicine ends. And let me explain that really quickly because medicine looks at you only go to a doctor really if you're sick.
Hmm.
That's usually, 95% I would say
Yeah.
of patients are people that are sick with something, symptoms, chronic disease, whatever it is. You go to a doctor and you get to a point of I would say self-healing and organization where you're not sick anymore if you're truly healed in a sense,
Right.
but you're not yet optimized. And that's where biohacking starts. It's usually people that are already at a spot somewhere where they're not chronically ill, or if they are, that's more medicine based, but they're now trying to optimize their health. And I love that because I thought that's what medicine should be.
Yeah.
It should not be disease management. It should be optimization of health. And that's
100%.
why the whole healthcare system is bullshit. It's
Right.
like it doesn't care about your health. It cares about keeping you sick, but just managing your symptoms so you don't feel as bad. You got a headache, take this pill. It's not why'd you hit the headache. It's not let's optimize you so you don't have that headache next time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what biohacking was about. And that's what I felt medicine should be about. So I really support the biohacking world because I feel like it's part of medicine. It really is.
Yeah.
It's just taking over where medicine has stopped in a sense, but I'd love to meld the two. I'd love to say, listen, medicine is about optimizing your health. You could come to your doctor, to our clinic, if you're completely healthy. We love that. We want to
Yeah.
prevent you from ever getting a disease and take you to the highest optimal self you can be in
And
your own health, which is mind, body, spirit. So that was kind of like, that's why I got introduced to like Dave Asprey and others in the field. I was just like, hey, I just vibe with these people because we have the same goal. We want to see your happiest and healthiest. And that's exactly what I thought medicine should have been from the start.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's an inherent fault with medicine. And, medicine has its place. We all know that,
Oh, yeah.
in acute situations, it's fantastic. But it seems to be the mental barrier, actually. And this is something that I experienced personally when I was transitioning from the Western model to the naturopathic model, is the complete resistance from my personal colleagues about, natural medicine and where it stands. And I think that also comes from, all of the propaganda and all of the things that are said about natural medicine and how it's fake and not as effective. But then as a patient who I have seen in my clinic who get these fantastic results, and they've been in the medical model, like you said, the sick model for years and years and years, and then they come in and then 3 weeks later, one of my patients just, went from chronic fatigue to absolutely no fatigue in 3 weeks. And it was a simple dietary change and an addition of a supplement, which is what we should be doing. Like you said, it should
Yeah.
be, we should be improving health. There's places like Japan where physicians actually get paid for improving health. That's how their
Yeah.
medical model works. So, I mean, we know how we got here, and unfortunately we are here, but I love that, there's people like you talking about the biohacking stuff and, changing the conversation around medicine, because there are unfortunately a lot of people who are sick and a lot of people who are now looking for answers, and we're making that move, and it's taking time, but I think we are getting there. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about redefining kind of integrative medicine. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think that term in general is one that has a lot of mystery around it and confusion because what does that define that yourself? Everyone has a different definition of, oh, you're just integrating other things.
Right.
What are those other things? Because some stop at, oh, you get a little like a hyperbaric chamber, you do a Myers cocktail, you're integrative medicine, which is
Mhm.
somewhat true. You're integrating different things, but I always saw it as, and I make this analogy a lot, and I was big into mixed martial arts many years ago and
Okay.
just following it. I didn't do it myself, but I love watching UFC, the early days and everything. And in the early days, if you watched it, it was specialty versus specialty. It
Okay.
was, you had, Ken Shamrock, the wrestler, the rough, tough guy that was a street brawler, versus Gracie, who was jujitsu master.
Okay.
So you had these specialties. It's like the gastroenterologist versus the neurologist, right?
Okay.
That went against each other and they battled each other. What they learned through going against each other and actual, like, seeing each other is that you can't ever do just one. And
Mhm.
that's why it was called mixed martial arts. You had to know all of these things. You had
Right.
to be an amazing wrestler, Muay Thai, boxer, everything. And those are the ones that actually were the best at their, sport or what they did. And that is so what is missing in medicine. Everyone
Yeah.
goes down a little specialty and we like to separate and go into subspecialties of that specialty, not looking at the complete body and all the solutions that are offered to get someone truly healthy. So when you start to look at the toolkit of what integrative medicine should be and redefining it, it should be all viable solutions from European biological medicine, functional
Yeah.
medicine, conventional medicine, psychology,
Mhm.
spiritual practices, ancient stuff to really modern AI stuff.
Yep.
That should all be put on the table and we should say, what is best for the patient? Not their
100%.
diagnosis, not the disease, not a protocol, but literally looking at each patient individually, understanding what their root causes are, and then
Mhm.
going into this very comprehensive toolkit that is not just a hammer and a saw, but it has everything there and being able to say, well, for this, this is best, and for that, and putting it together very neatly like a picture, like it is an artistry to it. It
Mhm.
isn't this sort of technicality where, oh, I read you have this, we put you on this. It's
Right.
so simplistic and it doesn't work. If it worked, we'd be much healthier than we are. Over
100%.
60% of us are chronically ill. We
Yeah.
got to admit, I think conventional medicine does wonderfully with acute emergency things.
Mhm.
You break a bone, you get in an accident, amazing. We need you, right? You get a acute infection, antibiotics work if it's bacterial.
Mhm.
Um, but on the whole, chronic disease, we are losing that battle with the conventional approach. Integrative medicine as redefined this way, not sort of like, oh, chiropractor versus acute, both. You need energy medicine, you need manipulation, maybe you need both at the same time.
Yep.
And that's why, jumping around from, and this is the problem I think with alternative medicine also, it's specialties, right? So
100%.
I'm seeing the future of it is this new age of integrative medicine where everyone's working together. You have your conventional specialists, you have your acupuncture, your spiritual people,
Mhm.
your new age, like, everyone's there to be
Yep.
able to give input and they all work together, not against each other, which is sometimes
Yes.
feels.
I'm really glad you said that. Just because from being on, like I said, so many sides, I got to see how different models work, right? So I saw how the Western model worked. I saw how the naturopathic model worked. And I actually went to Chinese medicine school for a little bit. So I kind of saw how that model worked. And I find that there is a resistance. I don't know if it's a dominance or an egoic kind of resistance of there's
Mhm.
only one right and I am right. And that's kind of the leading model of practitioners. But I agree with you. We need to be able to kind of blend and mold and take the best of all worlds and kind of create from there, because with resistance, we're not helping people. And I find that even in my industry, like I love naturopathic medicine. It's great, but it has its inherent faults. It has places where, we can't take people or things that are missing. And, we need Western medicine, or we need chiropractors, or we need, like you said, spiritual people who are going to work on that deeper emotional level that we can't get to necessarily. So
Yeah.
blended healthcare really needs to be the future. And I'm just curious, how you think that's going to happen. Like, how do you think we're going to get there? And what is that going to look like?
I think we get there being in it so long, like 20 years in the industry, and like, you could say 40 years because I grew up and that's how
Mhm.
old I am. But, looking at it from that lens, it has to start with the demand of the patient. This is what pharmaceutical companies know. That's why they advertise to patients when patients can't even buy the drug,
Right.
right? Why
Yeah.
do they do that? Because the demand is with the patient and the doctors follow. When you go to a doctor, you say, hey, I saw that beautiful commercial with people dancing and like running around. I have that disease. Give me that pill. They actually say yes most of the time. That's the truth.
Okay.
That's why you have so much advertising in big pharma. But you have to do the same for medicine as a whole. And you're seeing this. More and more people are turning to functional and others because the solutions in conventional are not there for them.
Yeah.
And they're looking, and what is more important than your health? Honestly, when you lose it, talk to any patient with chronic disease that can't get out of bed, that can't live their life, that can't go out and contribute and feel worthless at times.
Yeah.
They will go to all ends of the earth for a solution.
Mhm.
And that is where integrative functional, like this new age of medicine, this new paradigm is giving them solutions.
Mhm.
And so as more people start to demand this, you will see it grow and change. That is the big thing. But you have, a very entrenched old way of doing it that has so much money and power
Yeah.
that is keeping people from kind of making that switch. It again is, attacking the other side as, oh, that's not scientific and everything. And I would say go by experience. Anyone could show me a scientific study that's paid for by someone that shows something that they
Yep.
want to show, right?
Thank you for
But
that.
if you ask someone what their experience is with it, I don't think most people on that drug will be like, yeah, without that, I'm healthy and happy. No, the drug is what's keeping you alive, but that's not a good thing.
No.
You are reliant on a drug. Let's say it. You're addicted to a
100%.
drug, and that
Yeah.
drug has lots of side effects and all sorts of things. So it's chemical. But those that go through true healing are transformed. They come out the other end. They're self-managing themselves. They feel better. They go on to do amazing things. Anyone that's truly healed, not just gotten rid of their symptoms, can tell you it is a transformative and transmutative alchemical process. You come
Yeah.
out something better and your life is forever changed. And so that's a beautiful thing. And that's where we need to go to. And that's a big thing I say of the difference between healing versus treating.
Right.
Anyone could treat someone and just keep them on a drug. It's lazy to me.
Mhm.
To heal takes a little bit of effort, if not a lot of effort sometimes, but it is way more worth it. There's so much more value to it. And I think as more people see that and experience, unfortunately, disease,
Yeah.
then we will start to change the model around because it will be absolutely necessary. There will be no
100%.
other way we can go except sickness and death, which none of us want really.
Yeah. And you're right. It's always the chronic sufferers. And that was my
Mm.
own personal experience because when you're looking for answers, you're looking for answers. And if you're not getting them, you're looking in any place possible. One of the things actually I do want to touch on with you is the role of subconscious and emotional healing.
Mm.
Personally, I use it with patients. I feel like you have to. And my perspective might be a little bit different when I'm talking about like origin and root. There is always an emotional root. There's something that's going on in the subconscious mind that creates that environment in the person where disease can develop. What is your experience with that emotional role and that emotional root?
Well, emotions are such a big part of, disease formation
Mhm.
and the ability to stay in a disease state. So many people like to look at, just the physical side of things.
Yeah.
It's a functional lab test, it's the IVs, it's all of that show you a certain, but it doesn't go into that mind, emotional, psychological state of everything that is actually more important, I would say. It's
Yeah.
more of an initiating factor. And again, you could say, well, where's the science? And I look at HPA axis, look at things like that go much deeper into PNEI and everything that are initiating factors.
Mm-hmm.
So a patient that is not willing to address their emotional states is a patient that will never truly heal. It's unfortunate. And when you talk about the subconscious, it's really interesting because so many of us walk around with these belief systems that we don't even know. They're just playing since childhood, since time, repressed memory, things like that. We don't even know. And we wonder why. I'm doing everything right, and yet I'm still sick.
Mm-hmm.
And when everyone says I'm doing everything, I go, are you really doing everything right? Because you may not even know that you have a belief system in your subconscious that
Mm-hmm.
is running, that is keeping you sick.
Yep.
And until you address that, you will always be sick. You may have better days,
Mm-hmm.
but the truth is, true healing cannot happen unless you address all the aspects. And in some way, that's almost a spiritual element of it, the consciousness state, right? That
Mm-hmm.
so many forget or dismiss is so critically important. And that's when you look at medicine as this kind of body, mind, spirit, which is the biochemical, the PNEI, the consciousness state, and,
Mm-hmm.
cell membrane potential and all that.
Yep.
That's what really matters, that we look at all that and address it at the same time. So I think it's critical. And that's why, my mother and father were this dynamic duo of being a psychologist that was very spiritually approached everything, Jungian, and, looked at
Okay.
biofeedback and all these things.
Nice.
And my father was like, conventionally trained doctor, but loved European biological medicine, Western medicine. So I look at like that duo needs to be replicated amongst lots of different clinics and centers everywhere so we could address the emotional with the physical and the spiritual, as well as those repressed emotions
Hmm.
and the unconscious.
I'm glad that you actually brought up PNEI because that is a huge passion of mine. And I feel like it's almost kind of a lost art or lost science. Actually, the textbook I bought, I think, was from like Italy in 1980. It was written.
Oh, wow.
And it was so well developed and so well written. And I feel like, I mean, personally, going through medical school, we weren't taught about connection. We were, ingrained from the very beginning that there was specialties. There's cardiovascular, there's respiratory, and that's how they teach you. They teach you pathology that way. Then they teach you pharmaceuticals that way. So your brain inherently kind of creates that model. But then when you sit with a patient in front of you, and I don't know, I was given kind of like a God-given brain that looks at patterns. So it's like,
Yeah.
why every single person who sits in front of me who has, for instance, fibromyalgia has a very similar personality, a very similar belief system. And then I'm looking at people who have chronic fatigue syndrome. And again, we're seeing like the same kind of personality, emotional structure going on. And when you fix that, when you actually break it down to kind of the level of, this isn't just, your gut health as an issue. It isn't just your immune system attacking you. There's something going on in your mind that is giving you that, breakdown that's creating that physiological response. And a lot of the times, if we go back there, I find it's kind of like if you heal the root, then everything gets better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I mean, the disease is there for a reason to teach you something. It's to uplift you. So many people look at disease as this terrible thing. It's a wonderful kind of the canary in the coal mine of
Mm,
showing you something is off,
yeah.
right? Let's fix this. So if you look at it this way, it's a wonderful warning signal for your life to change something, to turn it around. Sometimes it takes a while to get there, but if you approach it the way you talk about, then
Mhm.
you'll get there quicker and you'll come out the other side better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So reinventing, I guess, this new model, one of the questions I do have for you is I know, alternative medicine in terms of its accessibility in Canada, it is privatized. You guys in America, I know everything is typically privatized, so you're paying for it no matter what.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering in terms of accessibility for patients, like I do know, alternative medicine is expensive. And especially if you don't have benefits, we can't access everybody. That's kind of the model that we're in. What are you seeing with accessibility and how do you think that's going to change in the future?
Well, number one, I would say it's not as expensive conventional medicine. You just don't see the bill usually, right? In
Okay, fair.
conventional medicine. If you saw
Yeah,
it, you'd be like, oh, damn, like, all right, 10,000 for one night and nothing happened and I'm still
right.
sick. And then,
Okay.
it could be a few 100,000 if you're talking about cancer treatments that usually don't work.
Mhm.
So, it's all relative. You just don't happen to see it up front. But I think the problem with this is the problem anything has in its infancy, and I still do believe the new way of alternative medicine is its infancy because it was the ancient ways that were forever. It's just
Yeah.
been lost in the last 100 years.
Mhm.
Um, I think with anything, if you look at it from a business perspective, it's as you scale up, you can bring down costs.
Right.
And there are people out there. I know, James Maskell and others started the functional forum. They're talking about how do we do that by bringing in not just doctors that are, costly and not as efficient, but bringing in health coaches, doing group
Right.
sessions.
Right.
How can we bring down the cost over time? But I have to say, where I think you bring down the cost the most is preventive medicine. You
Right.
don't wait till you get a disease. In a sense, you start early and you start kids young in an integrative realm. Once
Mhm.
you start kids young in a conventional realm, they're already kind of screwed, I have to say. You put them on a bunch of antibiotics, which totally screws with their gut microbiome, which puts them in depression, which, then you can't absorb nutrients right. Then you have ADHD. Then you put you on another drug. You're screwed by the time you're 10 if you're a
Yeah.
kid in the conventional realm. And you're not going to be the same. You're going to end up with chronic disease probably sooner than later.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep going younger and younger. That's what we're seeing in our clinic. It's like 10, 20 years ago, yeah, you're in your 50s and 60s when you got chronic disease. Now you're in your 20s and 30s and you have cancer, and it's
Absolutely.
scary.
It is
So,
scary.
so I would say if you're talking about it from the financial standpoint and accessibility, It's number one, of course, you need to change demand for it. People want it more. That brings down costs as more people are involved in it. And I'll say this, healthcare plays a part in this, insurance, I'm saying. And I know we've been invited to India, the largest healthcare system over there. Bupa invited us out there to talk about because they realize with over 1 billion people that are all getting westernized disease, they can't
Mhm.
last in that. That is not sustainable. It's really expensive to treat people, who have these diabetes and hypertension every year over and over. They want to get ahead of it. They want to say, how do we prevent our population from becoming diseased and cover these things for them? Because they
Mhm.
will save money in the long run, right? So
100%. Yeah.
I think when you look at it from a logical standpoint, it's just like, hey, let's take a step back. What's going to cost us more money? Keeping this system and spending lots of money to just keep people managing their disease,
Mhm.
or getting ahead of it, introducing this new whole field and not and preventing disease from ever happening. That is a much, much more efficient way and financially responsible way as well. And everyone wins in that model.
100%. Yeah, and I think the goal, like you said, it needs to come back to patient care. What do the
Yeah.
patients want? Let's help the patients, patient-centered, you know, that's where
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Move away from sick care in general. Like, unfortunately, it is true. A lot of companies profit when you're sick. That is
Yeah.
there's nothing hidden or secret about that. So I think we just got to move away from it, and kind of for us as individuals to say, let me place health first. And
Yeah.
it starts with me. If my daily actions are healthy ones, I will be healthier for society, all these things, and it'll impact others. And I think that's how you start to change and make a wave that overcomes this old system that wants us sick.
Right. Yeah. And I completely agree with you. I wish I could get into that because I know that I have a lot of questions around kind of, the medical model, the sick model, but we do have to wrap up here. Casper, how can people connect with you? How can they come to your clinic? Give us a little bit of information on that.
Yeah, they can head over to innovativemedicine.com. So that's the company I run, Innovative Medicine. We have a clinic in New York. We're looking to open on the West Coast and other places as well shortly. So get more accessibility, as we talked about.
Good. Yeah.
They can follow me on Instagram, Caspar Szulc. That's CASPARSZULC. Really tough name, I know. But yeah, I do a weekly newsletter. You can find everything on there and send that out. And yeah, I like to connect with people who have questions through there and just share my thoughts on the field and what's going on there.
Beautiful. And I will put all of that in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to Casper, you can find all that information there. So thank you so much again for your
Yeah,
time.
thank
Truly
you.
value it. Like gratitude for you being here and making the time to kind of educate my audience as well. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.